The first thing I will teach you is how to understand yourself. This foundation is very important because your values, your culture impacts how you perceive things. So when you face different behaviors or situations, your perception might lead you to poor judgment, poor decisions. So once you understand who you are, it can really help make a difference. Before I go any further, I'm going to ask you a number of questions in the next few parts. Have a piece of paper and a pen, and every time I ask you a question, just pause the video and write down your thoughts. So the first area I'm going to explore is your motivation. Why do you want to develop your cultural intelligence? Why do you want to become a global leader? And this question you can ask yourself in any situation where you're going to have a new work or a new intercultural interaction, either meetings and having a meeting or just an ongoing work relationship with a team. So I want you to take the piece of paper and write 3 external motivators. These are things like money, titles. Take a moment to write it down. And also 3 internal motivators. Things like making the world a better place, sense of purpose, serving your community. So take a moment to write this down. Now, if you have strong internal motivators, these will be more effective. And the reason why you need this is because sometimes you will have some challenging situations where knowing why you want to do this can help you persevere and keep going. So once you have this set, then let's look at culture and how that impacts our perception and the way we see things. Now, culture is how the way we do things around here, as you might have heard. It's also what's acceptable and desirable in a certain group. And this can change from ethnic groups, but also professional groups, subgroups, male, female, different genders. And that's important because you might have it's important to know that is you might have a situation like, let's say you're in a restaurant and next to you there's a table, they're having a lot of fun, they're being very loud. Now, how do you perceive this? Is it going to be, oh, they're obnoxious, they're annoying, or they're having so much fun, I want to join them? So you see, one behavior perceived differently. And one framework that's important, that's useful to approach is there's this triangle. So on the top side, you have what's universal. It could be what's a good leader? You want to be a good leader. And the second one is cultural. So then how that looks like. Is a good leader somebody like in the US who is charismatic, self-deprecating humor, empowers his employees, or somebody who has a strong image, very commanding, gives orders, doesn't like to be questioned, exude confidence. You see, which one is it? When you're in one context, it could be one of them, and that same leader, when they go to another country, another culture, they might be perceived as incompetent. So you see, it's important to know what's going on and how, and then on the personal side, the lowest level is maybe somebody is shy or extroverted, introverted. It could be they like the color orange is their favorite color, maybe. So you see, as you see these behaviors, as you develop your cultural intelligence, you'll be able to tell, okay, this behavior, is it just them? Maybe they're being quirky, or is it something that represents the group? Or is it just a group that is really on this whole region? You see, because every person you meet, it'll be a unique combination of what they do, how they do, and sometimes it's just them. Sometimes it helps you to know that the rest of the group will respond a certain way to a certain situation. And the reason this is important is when you have a situation in front of you, instead of judging it, if it's not the way you would do things, instead of judging it like the whole person, then you can know closer what's going on. Is it just, let's say they're being a bit late, and then in your culture, being late is disrespectful. But if you know, as a culturally intelligent person, that, time, there's more than one way to look at time, then maybe they don't mean to be rude. And just reframing that, not thinking just from a gut feeling, they're trying to insult, they're being rude. They just do things differently. That can completely reframe many situations. And to help with this, I'll cover 3 aspects of culture that are these dimensions that people use to compare cultures. So we mentioned time. One of them is time perception. Is it flexible or is it more strict? So on a piece of paper, put 3 lines about an inch or 3 centimeters apart. The first one is going to be time orientation. So strict or flexible. And put yourself on this line where you feel you fit. So if, let's say, for you time is flexible, meaning it's not important for people to show up on time with you, and you are not worrying too much about being on time. You're fashionably late usually, and you don't get annoyed when somebody's not there on really very precisely on time. So that's flexible. The other end is when it's very strict. If somebody is even a minute or two late, you feel like they're being disrespectful. That's the other end. So where do you fit? So put yourself on that spectrum, that line. The second one is going to be this called power distance. So that's like hierarchy, a nice, simpler way to put it. Do you prefer a leader who is approachable, empowers you, asks your opinion, friendly, you call him by his first name? Or on the other side, somebody who exudes confidence, you can only call him by his title, Mr. This, and who doesn't like to be questioned. He gives orders, he knows what he's doing, and he doesn't like to be questioned. He likes people to follow his orders without questioning. So which side is your preference? So again, find yourself. And the other one is communicator, or direct versus indirect. And then you have direct when it comes to communication when it comes to feedback, which is not always the same as general communication. Like in the US, children are brought up saying, the parents tell them, say what you mean what you say. So that's direct. But the way they get feedback is not direct. They give you the good stuff, and then they indirectly allude to what could be better. And this confuses a lot of people because, let's say, the French, when they come here, they think, oh, these are direct communicators like us. Because in France, when you give feedback, why would you waste time on what already works? They start with the negative. And now when an American goes to, let's say, France, and then they're wondering, like, why are these people so negative? They always talk about what's bad. So you see, that difference is what creates friction and conflict. So here again, put yourself on that line where you find yourself. Now there's several other dimensions that I usually cover, but these are a good beginning. And so knowing where you are, when you have an interaction and there's some situation with, let's say, a colleague, as a leader, you are talking to somebody and you can't get them to tell you what you want in direct terms, or they seem to be always avoiding to answer directly. Maybe what happens is that this person is on the indirect side of the scale, and now that you know that you're on the direct side, that gap is what creates challenges. And as a culturally intelligent leader, you will develop an awareness where you'll be able to tell, oh, right now there's an issue here, but instead of judging the person, I will try to understand and come back to it. Oh, I think it's about communication. Revert back to this aspect, see how they communicate, and if they do things like, oh, I like this book, this is direct. And then if they say, oh, this book maybe preferable, oh, it seems to be a good choice, you see, this is indirect. So you can tell from the wording where they stand, and then you can adapt your behavior. Then you can also communicate a bit more indirectly, or have a conversation, let's say, at the team, if they're different cultures, so that you agree together on one way to communicate, which could be direct. Now, indirect communicators can usually quite easily learn to communicate directly, but it's just not what they used to. So if nobody told them, or they don't know why they would do that, so if they don't have a strong motivation, like a team conversation about what they should do and why, then there's little motivation to change. So these are traits that you can keep in mind as you develop your cultural intelligence. I'll ask you another question where I'd like you to write down what comes to your mind is, first, what's a good leader? So take 30 seconds, just the first words that come to mind. Then, what's a good colleague? And then what's a good team environment? And as a leader, this is important because you might have a definition of a good team environment, but somebody else might not. So you see, these are things that you will develop your sensibility as a culturally intelligent leader, so that then everybody will be included, they'll be comfortable and bring their whole self. And that's when diversity becomes powerful. All these different perspectives and ideas and strengths coming together, fully engaged, this is when you can create amazing things. Now, some of the things that get in your way is biases. So biases are, you have the just the biases that you're aware of or not so aware of, which could be just prejudice and judgment about a person or a group that are sometimes positive, sometimes negative, but usually unfair. And you have the unconscious bias, where it's a prejudice that's had outside of the conscious mind of somebody. So let's say I might be a strong believer of diversity, but my actions undermine it. I'll give you an example. There was a friend of mine who's Kenyan who worked at Uber, and he's a black man. He moved here to the Bay Area. He's coming to the office, and the receptionist didn't want to let him in without checking his ID. Why? Because she thought that he was a driver instead of having one of the office employees. And he was actually somebody who opened Uber in several countries. So he was very like accomplished, professional, high level. And the only difference between him, who got challenged, and his colleagues, and they all came in together, was the color of his skin. So you see, that could be one example of bias and racial prejudice. Another example could be about often people think that overweight individuals are less intelligent. If you think about it, it's quite silly. You also have how people speak. In some cultures, the way people speak, the accent is linked to education, linked to a certain class in society. Now, in other cultures, first of all, they might not care about the way they speak so much, but also the distribution or the structure of, or how a certain accent, where do they fit in the society, it might be different. So if you're moving to a new country where they don't care about accents, and you used to care, and let's say you're hiring a lawyer or an accountant, and they have an accent that for you is perceived as rural, while they might be the best accountant, best lawyer, and the way they speak has no impact on their work, then you might miss out on a great hire. Worse than that, you might judge somebody else as being good based on something that is, again, irrelevant, and you might hire the wrong person who is actually not competent. So this is how biases can lead to wrong decisions. Now, biases are normal. We evolved with them. The key is to become aware of them so we can control them. Now, one quick way is when you make a decision is really be deliberate. So look at who you need for what role, for example, and then find facts that prove each of these important aspects that matter. And then set your decision based on that. Also, try to be aware. So let's say if you know that a certain cultural group you're not comfortable with because you have little experience with them, that might be why you're not comfortable with them, not because they're a bad person. So be careful to see what aspect is important to use for judgment and which aspect is not. So this can help you make better decisions. Also, when it comes to biases and all this work with yourself is awareness. Now, I mentioned earlier that when there's a difference between who you are, your comfort zone, or where you are in this cultural spectrums, and other people, is when you interact, there might be discomfort. Let's say you land in a new country and everybody is just so close to you physically and you're uncomfortable. Maybe the personal space preference is different. So in this case, they're not trying to be mean. It's just, oh, that's one aspect is different, and then you know what to do to kind of remove yourself. So part of being culturally intelligent is sometimes meet the other person in their comfort zone, but also know what you need to be comfortable. So one thing you can do is develop your mindful meditation practice. Start with a few minutes, sit up straight, close your eyes, focus on your breathing. That can help you develop an awareness about your body. So when, let's say, somebody in your interaction is trying to annoy you, then you start to feel that annoyance is growing, and then you can stop yourself, hold judgment, and ask yourself, what's really going on? Is it something small? Let's say somebody being a few minutes late, like I mentioned in the earlier example, and that your automatic reaction is, oh, they're late, they're disrespecting me, they're being rude. But if you think and you realize, oh, they're actually from another country where they might not have the same perception of time, and they're just being a few minutes late, if it's just a few minutes on a Saturday for brunch, it really doesn't matter, because you've removed that the perceived intention of insult. So you can develop this, and also, actually, there's a strong evidence that developing this mindful meditation can help your brain develop better. So you can Google that. It's a very interesting topic. That's why I have been increasing how long I meditate every day, and it's helped me focus and helping the situations as well. And as I asked you to journal, the same way, it's good to keep a journal. Whenever something new is happening, write a few thoughts down. And then you can revisit, reflect, share your thoughts and feelings, and see how later on, when you revisit, how that goes. And when you discover new things about the people you interacted with, that can then help you reframe what you perceived. So here you have it. These are some very good foundation to start with your understanding who you are. Now, in the next video, I'll cover how to understand others. And in the third video, I'll bring it together so that you can take your understanding about yourself and others to be able to collaborate well and also resolve conflicts. And what this can do is it can help you become the leader that can leverage cultural diversity in a powerful way to find better solutions, more creative solutions, grow market share, be more efficient, increase profits, so many advantages. And this is where the potential of diversity lies. So what I want you to do now is, in the comment, leave a comment saying, share with us, why do you want to develop your cultural intelligence, and how do you think that this can benefit your career? So go ahead in the comment, share this with us, and then I'll see you at the next video.